Have you ever met someone who can turn a minor disagreement over, like, spilled milk, or in this case, spilled ghee, into a literal philosophical debate about the collapse of human civilization?
Oh, yeah. We all know at least one person like that.
Right. Today, we are exploring the ultimate nitpicker. And trust me, you are going to recognize this personality type immediately.
Oh, absolutely. It's universally relatable.
It really is. But before we jump in, I just want to humbly welcome you to the Simplified Summary channel. Please hit that subscribe button, like in this video, and share your valuable comments below to help us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Yeah, your support really means a lot to us.
It totally does. So our mission today is to completely unpack the psychology of a man who uses these grand, high-minded philosophies just to, justify his absolute pettiest behaviors. We're looking at a classic story called Kunchad, which translates to the fault finder or the nitpicker. It's this brilliant piece by the legendary Hindi author Munshi Premchand, extracted right from his book Mansarovar Part 4.
And it's such a phenomenal text to explore because, Premchand was just an absolute master at observing human nature.
Oh, for sure.
He doesn't just sketch a character, right?
Yeah.
He dissects their hypocrisy with, surgical precision. And the protagonist here, Babu Kundanlal, is one of his most fascinating psychological studies.
Which is saying a lot for Premchand.
Exactly. It's a personality archetype that really transcends time and culture. You see them everywhere, from corporate boardrooms to family dining tables.
So true. And I love that the opening scene of this story is perfectly mundane, but it tells us literally everything we need to know about the baseline of this household.
It really sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah, so Babu Kundanlal comes home from his job at the court. He walks in, and he finds his wife, Rameshwari, locked in this intense, half-hour haggling match with a local vegetable seller, the Kunchad.
Over spinach.
Yes, over a handful of spinach. And the stakes of this negotiation are astonishingly low. Rameshwari is stubbornly offering 1.5 paise per seer, while the seller is asking for 2 paise.
It is a microscopic economic battle. First they argue over that tiny fraction of currency.
Right.
Then they start arguing over the accuracy of the physical scales themselves. Rameshwari actually suspects the balance is off.
Oh, and this is the crazy part. They literally pause the argument, go over to a neighbor's house, and borrow a completely different set of weights just to verify the measurement.
And even after all that, after the spinach is finally weighed out, they start fighting over the gata, which is the extra free portion that buyers traditionally demand as a bonus.
Is a full-blown theatrical production over leafy greens. The seller finally just leaves, threatening never to return. But, okay, let's unpack this. It's like watching someone spend 3 hours online trying to find a 50-cent discount code.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. But I'm struggling with his reaction. Kundanlal is supposedly this strict, lecturing intellectual of the home. So why does he just stand there for 30 minutes watching a scene he clearly finds pathetic? Why not just hand the woman the fraction of a penny and go inside?
Well, that refusal to intervene is actually the most crucial detail Premchand gives us here.
How so?
Kundanlal watches this whole tamasha, this spectacle, silently because he views himself as a detached, elevated intellectual. He's silently judging his wife's pettiness. He looks at her haggling over a fraction of a cent and just thinks about how unrefined these simple people are fighting over scraps.
So he's feeling superior.
Exactly. By placing him in the role of the silent observer, Premchand is setting the stage for Kundanlal's own hypocrisy, which is honestly far worse.
Okay, but I want to push back on that idea of him just being a detached observer for a second. If we look at the historical context, he works as a clerk in a British court during the colonial era.
Right.
He likely has zero power all day long.
Yeah.
He just has to bow his head and take orders. Isn't this domestic silence kind of acting like a psychological pressure valve?
Oh, okay.
He comes home and inflates his domestic authority to these cosmic proportions just to release that pent-up emasculation from work.
That is a really brilliant way to frame it. He is a colonized man suffering from a profound sense of powerlessness in the public sphere.
Right.
So displacement is the psychological mechanism at play here. Since he can't assert authority over his British superiors, he compensates by asserting this absolute intellectual dominance over his household.
Which is so unfair to his wife. Rameshwari is at least honest about what she's doing. She just wants a deal on spinach.
Exactly. But Kundanlal, on the other hand, begins to dress his own intense penny-pinching in. Like a tuxedo of morality.
A tuxedo of morality, I love that.
Yeah.
Because watching a vegetable vendor is one thing, that's an external transaction. But how does this detached intellectual handle a financial drain that lives inside his own house?
And that brings us to the guest.
Yes. Kundanlal starts complaining bitterly to Rameshwari about a man they currently have staying with them. He sits down, crunches the numbers, and calculates that this house guest is costing the household exactly 1 rupee a day.
Which, a house guest is a completely different kind of financial threat. A vegetable vendor leaves after 30 minutes.
Right.
A guest stays, eats, and consumes resources continuously. And we have to remember, in traditional Indian culture, hospitality to a guest is not just polite, it's a sacred duty.
So I'm trying to understand the psychological bridge he builds here. How does a man avoid the cultural shame of turning away a guest?
Well, he doesn't just say, hey, this guy is expensive, tell him to leave.
No, he elevates it to theology. He argues that extending hospitality to such freeloaders is actually a moral sin. He tells his wife that feeding lazy people is the equivalent of feeding them poison. He literally claims that by giving this guest a free meal, they're actively destroying the man's immortal soul.
It's wild. He fundamentally rewrites the rules of engagement to suit his wallet. He knows deep down that his culture demands generosity.
And Rameshwari calls him out on it.
She does. She reminds him directly by calling him a thief of bread, meaning someone who is stingy with food in their own home. Yeah, that is a devastating insult in this context because it threatens his carefully constructed self-image as this righteous, honorable man. But she gets worn down by his relentless, logical-sounding barrage of arguments.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Rameshwari's instinct is based on basic human decency. You feed someone in your home, but he's basically using ethics as a shield for being cheap.
Oh, totally.
It's like a friend who refuses to tip at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And instead of just admitting they want to save $5, they claim they're, like, taking a stand against the capitalist wage system. Isn't he just weaponizing philosophy to mask his stinginess?
I agree completely with that analogy. The underlying mechanism here is pure cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Kundanlal experiences mental discomfort because his actions being inhospitable directly contradict his belief that he's a good person.
Right, so he has to fix that gap in his head.
Exactly. To resolve that tension, he has to reframe the narrative. He can't be the bad guy, so he flips the script entirely.
By claiming the guest's soul is at stake.
Yes. And by doing that, he miraculously absolves himself of the guilt. He convinces himself that he's not being cheap. He's acting as a spiritual savior. He's protecting this man from the sin of sloth.
It's just so deeply cynical.
It is a cynical manipulation of morality, but it allows him to keep his rupee a day and feel like a saint while doing it.
It's infuriating, but, I mean, the mental gymnastics are genuinely impressive.
Yeah.
So he uses theology to avoid spending money on a peer. But what happens when the financial loss is caused by a subordinate, like someone who can't fight back intellectually or socially?
And that takes us to the spilled ghee.
Yes, the incident with the spilled ghee. Their maid, Mari, accidentally knocks over a pot of ghee or clarified butter. And obviously it's a valuable commodity in an Indian kitchen, but it's just a clumsy mistake.
Right.
But Kundanlal completely loses his mind. He immediately demands that her wages be cut to pay for the loss.
And we have to emphasize, for a domestic worker living on the extreme edge of poverty during this era, docking pay is not a minor inconvenience.
No, not at all.
It is a devastating financial blow. It could mean her own family goes hungry.
So I need you to map the logic for me here, because the escalation is breathtaking. He doesn't just invoke a simple rule of, like, you broke it, you bought it.
Oh, no, he goes way beyond that.
Way beyond. To justify docking this poor woman's pay, he cites the ancient concept of an eye for an eye. He starts quoting Jesus Christ. He invokes ancient, monumental Hindu lawgivers like Manu.
It's quite the leap.
He literally tells his wife that if they don't enact strict punishment for this spilled ghee, the entire rule of law will vanish, society will collapse into a bloodbath, and murderers will roam the streets freely. So what does this all mean? He's equating a clumsy maid spilling ghee to a literal murderer. This raises an important question for you. Is he genuinely terrified of societal collapse, or is he just trying to convince himself it's okay to dock a poor woman's pay?
It's absolutely the latter. It all comes back to defending his ego against the reality of his own cruelty.
Right.
Think about the stark reality of the situation. If he admits it's just a pot of spilled ghee and he docks the pay of a desperately poor woman for a simple accident, he looks incredibly cruel.
He looks like a monster.
Exactly, a monster bullying a helpless servant. And his fragile intellectual ego simply cannot tolerate seeing himself that way.
So he needs to inflate the crime so his reaction feels justified.
Precisely. He has to inflate a minor domestic accident to a cosmic civilizational level. If he makes this incident about the survival of the rule of law and the preservation of human civilization, he transforms himself.
He's the hero now.
Yes, he's no longer a petty tyrant terrorizing a maid over cooking fat. He gets to play the righteous, brave defender of universal justice.
And he completely cherry-picks those religious texts, too. I mean, Jesus spoke of turning the other cheek, but Kundanlal ignores that part.
Exactly. He weaponizes sacred texts to guard his wallet. It is the ultimate rationalization. He keeps his money, and more importantly, he keeps his inflated sense of moral superiority completely intact.
He's built this massive fortress of intellectual jargon just to guard a few pennies. We've seen him use philosophy to bully his wife and his maid. But what happens when that domestic fortress is breached by an actual, real-world political philosophy?
Oh, this is where it all crashes down.
How does his grandstanding hold up when he's finally challenged by someone who sees right through him?
Well, the safety of his domestic echo chamber is eventually shattered. And it's a phenomenal moment in the narrative because, lecturing a subservient wife and a terrified maid requires no courage.
Not at all.
But stepping into the arena of actual ideological debate, that is an entirely different proposition.
We see this clash happen during a separate debate in the story regarding beggars. Kundanlal is pontificating as usual, asking why all these beggars on the street don't just go get jobs.
Right.
And there's a young woman present who completely challenges his worldview. She calmly argues that beggars would gladly work if actual jobs existed. She points out the systemic failures of their society. She states that institutional help, like orphanages and social safety nets, will only become a reality when India finally achieves Swaraj.
Swaraj being the absolute demand for self-rule and independence from British colonization. And just to be clear to our listeners, we're impartially exploring the themes in Premchand's text here.
Absolutely. We're just unpacking the source material.
Right. So in the context of the story, Swaraj was the defining radical political movement of Premchand's time.
But why does the concept of systemic change completely short-circuit Kundanlal's brain? He gets incredibly defensive.
He really does.
He defends the current colonized state of affairs by claiming that Hindu society has survived 4 millennia through Dharma, this inherent cosmic law and duty. He proudly compares India to fallen empires like Rome and Greece, arguing that their society is still enduring because of spiritual superiority.
And this reaction exposes the core emptiness of his character. We have to analyze the colonial context to understand why he retreats to this specific defense.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Kundanlal leans heavily on the abstract concept of dharma to accept the status quo, because accepting the status quo requires absolutely no action from him.
Wow, yeah.
It's a philosophy of endurance. It allows him to sit comfortably in his house, saving his pennies, while pretending to be spiritually superior to the Greeks and Romans, all while his country is being ruled by a foreign power.
It's like a boomer uncle getting completely schooled at a family dinner by his Gen Z niece. He expects her to just nod along to his traditionalist view, but she hits him with a radical anti-colonial reality check.
That is exactly the dynamic. She shoots back that a subjugated society, colonized society is already dead.
Yeah, she tells him point blank that slavery is death.
And Kundanlal is left sitting there, completely shocked and speechless. He has no rebuttal to that. She shatters his illusion completely.
Because he's never faced real pushback.
Right. The young woman represents the emerging, urgent demand for Swaraj. Kundanlal is paralyzed by her because his own so-called rebellions and grand philosophies are entirely theoretical.
They're safely limited to lecturing his wife and his maid.
Exactly. Genuine revolutionary thought demands actual rebellion, risk, and physical courage, things he fundamentally lacks. Confronted with that, the paper tiger is exposed.
It reveals such a profound hypocrisy. He uses philosophy as a weapon against the weak. But the moment philosophy is used to challenge power, he cowers behind tradition.
Premchand is very subtle and careful in his construction here. He impartially presents both sides without breaking the narrative to preach. The brilliance lies in showing, rather than telling, how cowardly Kundanlal truly is.
As we wrap up our analysis of Babu Kundanlal, the ultimate Kunchad, We're left with a portrait of a man who meticulously hides his personal flaws, his stinginess, and his inaction behind this massive wall of grand philosophical arguments.
He really is a master of making the petty seem profound to protect his ego.
It is very easy for us to sit back and laugh at him, to view him as a caricature of a stubborn, cheap patriarch. But Premchand's stories endure because they function as mirrors for the reader.
Right. If we only laugh at Kundanlal, we miss the deeper psychological warning of the text.
Exactly. It forces you to look at your own life.
Yeah.
How often do we dress up our own petty grievances as matters of high principle?
We all do it.
Think about the last time you started a massive argument with a partner or a roommate over something trivial, like loading the dishwasher or taking out the trash. Did you keep it about the chore? Or did you suddenly find yourself delivering a monologue about the fundamental breakdown of mutual respect and responsibility in modern relationships?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we escalate the mundane to avoid admitting we're just annoyed. We all utilize these defense mechanisms.
So true.
And this raises an important question, a final thought for you to really mull over as you go about your day. What if our highest, most fiercely defended principles are sometimes just the masks we wear to hide our deepest insecurities and our lack of empathy?
That is savvy thought.
The next time you find yourself digging your heels in, arguing a loud, self-righteous point of principle with someone over a minor mistake, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is it really about the principle, or is it just about the spilled ghee?
Is it really just the spilled ghee? That changes the way I'll look at every argument moving forward. Thank you all so much for taking this deep dive with us today.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. And humbly, one last reminder, if you got value out of this deep dive, please subscribe to the Simplified Summary channel, smash that like button, and share your valuable comments below on what you thought of Babu Kundanlal. Do you recognize this behavior in yourself or someone you know? Let us know in the comments. See you the next one.